Imagine walking into a doctor's office, taking a seat across from someone who holds your health in their hands, and realizing within seconds that they're not really paying attention. Their eyes skim over the chart, their head nods politely, but their mind seems somewhere else. If you're over 65, chances are you've felt that sting before. It's subtle, but it lingers, a quiet sense that you're not being heard, that your concerns are being filed away as just part of getting old. Many seniors whisper about it, but very few say it out loud. Doctors often treat older patients differently, and not always in ways that help. This isn't about bad people in white coats. Most doctors care deeply. But the truth is uncomfortable. They make assumptions. They decide which tests are worth ordering, which treatments are too aggressive, and sometimes they let age, not need, guide their choices. It's frustrating, even heartbreaking, to sit there knowing your life is just as valuable now as it was decades ago, yet feeling like the system sees you as less. That's the conversation we need to have today, because once you understand what's really happening, you can take back control of your health, your dignity, and your future. When people talk about discrimination, they often think about race, gender, or income. But there's another form of bias that rarely makes the evening news, even though it affects millions of Americans every single day. It's subtle, it hides behind polite smiles and medical jargon, and it often shows up in the most vulnerable place of all, the doctor's office. It's called ageism in healthcare, and if you've ever felt brushed aside, dismissed, or told that's normal for your age, then you've experienced it firsthand. The truth is, many doctors don't even realize they're doing it. They walk into the exam room already carrying assumptions. They see gray hair, slower movement, or a date of birth on the chart, and in their minds, a story starts forming before you even open your mouth. That story often says you're too fragile for certain treatments, that testing aggressively isn't worth it, or that whatever you're complaining about is just another side effect of getting older. They may not say it out loud, but it shapes the way they treat you. Think about how different that is from the way younger patients are handled. A 45-year-old walks in with chest pain, and the immediate thought is, let's run tests, let's make sure nothing serious is happening. But an 80-year-old with the same complaint might hear, well, you know, some discomfort is common at your age. Instead of being rushed to get an EKG, you might be handed a prescription for antacids or told to keep an eye on it. That difference in response can mean the difference between catching a heart condition early and facing a crisis that could have been prevented. One of the most frustrating parts of ageism in healthcare is how it masquerades as kindness. Doctors often believe they're protecting you. They don't want to put you through unnecessary stress or treatments. They assume a surgery will be too risky, a medication too strong, a hospital stay too exhausting. But here's the reality. Those decisions are often made without even asking you what you want, without explaining the options fully, and without giving you the dignity of choice. You're left with fewer tests, fewer treatments, and fewer chances at a better outcome, all because someone else decided your age mattered more than your health. Consider the story of Helen, a woman from Ohio who was 78 when she began experiencing severe back pain. She had always been active, loved gardening, and still drove herself around town. When she went to her doctor, she expected a thorough evaluation. Instead, he told her, well, that's what happens when we get older. Your bones aren't what they used to be. No scans, no blood work, just a pat on the shoulder and a suggestion to take over-the-counter pain relievers. Months later, after the pain became unbearable, she went to a different physician who immediately ordered an MRI. The results showed advanced spinal stenosis, something that could have been treated much earlier with physical therapy, targeted medication, and possibly surgery. By the time she got the right diagnosis, her mobility had already declined drastically. Helen's independence was stolen, not by aging itself, but by assumptions made in a doctor's office. That's the insidious nature of ageism. It confuses normal aging with neglect. Yes, bodies change as we grow older. Yes, some aches and stiffness are part of the process. But assuming every symptom is just age is dangerous. It closes the door to real solutions. Imagine if we treated children the same way. If a 10-year-old had recurring headaches and a doctor shrugged and said, well, that's normal for kids, they're always tired from school. We would never accept that answer. We would demand tests, referrals, and explanations. So why do so many of us accept it when we're 60, 70, or 80? Another angle to consider is how ageism intersects with medical research. For decades, clinical trials focused primarily on younger, healthier adults. Seniors were often excluded from studies because of complex conditions or potential risks. The unintended consequence is that many treatments, medications, and guidelines aren't even tested thoroughly on older populations. So when doctors assume a treatment isn't right for you, part of that belief comes from a system that has historically overlooked seniors altogether. You become invisible twice, first in research, then in the exam room. And yet, seniors today are healthier and more active than ever. People in their 70s hike, travel, run small businesses, volunteer, and even go back to school. The old stereotype of the frail, dependent senior simply doesn't fit the reality of millions of Americans. But in many medical settings, that outdated image still lingers. The assumption is that your quality of life can't improve much, so why bother trying? That attitude robs people of hope, of options, and sometimes of years they could have enjoyed fully. Let's pause and imagine a very common situation. You go in complaining of fatigue, dizziness, or trouble concentrating. Instead of asking deeper questions, your doctor smiles sympathetically and says, "Well, you are getting up there in years." Maybe they order some basic blood work, maybe not. They suggest more rest and hydration. But fatigue in seniors can be a red flag for anemia, heart disease, thyroid issues, and even early cancer. By writing it off as just age, a serious condition may be left untreated until it becomes life-threatening. What was dismissed in a 7-minute appointment could end up shortening your life. It's not always dramatic, though. Sometimes it's the small dismissals that add up. You mention a new pain, and it's brushed aside. You raise a concern about memory, and you're told to expect a little forgetfulness. You express worry about a medication, and the answer is, at your age, side effects are normal. Each little dismissal chips away at your confidence until you start believing it yourself. You stop asking questions. You stop pushing back. You become passive, thinking that's just the way things are. And that's exactly what allows ageism to thrive. Silence. But silence isn't the answer. The more we recognize ageism for what it is, a bias, not a fact, the more we can push back. Aches and pains aren't automatically normal. Fatigue isn't automatically just aging. Forgetfulness isn't always part of getting old. Sometimes those things are signs of treatable conditions. Sometimes there are clues that your body is asking for help, and you have the right to demand that help. Take the story of Robert, an 82-year-old veteran. For years, he mentioned recurring stomach discomfort at his appointments. Each time, his doctor told him it was acid reflux, gave him antacids, and reminded him that digestive issues are common at your age. Robert trusted his doctor, so he kept managing the discomfort as best he could. But the pain grew worse. Finally, his daughter urged him to see a specialist. Within weeks, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. The good news was that it was still treatable, but the delay meant harsher treatments and a longer recovery. Robert survived, but he told his daughter something chilling. "I wonder how many people my age don't have someone pushing them to get a second opinion." His story is not unique. This is why ageism in healthcare isn't just about frustration or bruised feelings. It's about survival. It directly affects the tests you receive, the treatments you're offered, and the chances you have at recovery. It determines whether you get proactive care or a dismissive shrug. And the most painful part is that it happens quietly, hidden behind the language of being realistic or not putting you through too much. Now, to be fair, not every doctor falls into this trap. Many work hard to treat seniors with dignity, respect, and thoroughness. But the fact that so many don't is exactly why this conversation matters. Because until seniors themselves recognize what's happening, the system won't change. Doctors need to be reminded, sometimes firmly, that your age does not define your worth. That your life at 80, 90, or beyond is still rich, meaningful, and worth fighting for. One way to reframe this is to remember how much seniors have already given. You've raised families, built communities, paid taxes, defended freedoms, volunteered, and kept society running. You've accumulated wisdom that no textbook can teach. To walk into a clinic after all of that and be treated as though your best years are behind you is more than unfair, it's insulting. And yet it happens every day, in every state, in ways large and small. So what can you do? Start by noticing the signs. Pay attention to the language your doctor uses. Do they dismiss your symptoms as just age? Do they avoid offering treatments because of your years rather than your overall health? Do they skip over tests without explaining why? These are all red flags. Once you see them, you can push back. Ask for explanations. Ask what would be done if you were 20 years younger. Ask why a test or treatment isn't being offered. Sometimes the mere act of asking changes the tone of the conversation. Another powerful step is to share stories with each other. Seniors often feel isolated, thinking they're the only ones being dismissed. But when you start talking to friends, neighbors, or family members, you realize it's a common experience. That realization can give you strength. It reminds you that you're not imagining things, and that your voice matters. The more seniors speak up, the harder it becomes for the healthcare system to ignore them. It's also important to recognize that ageism isn't always malicious. Doctors are human. They get tired, they get busy, they rely on shortcuts. But understanding that doesn't mean excusing it. Even if the bias is unconscious, it still hurts patients. It still steals opportunities for better health. And the only way to counter it is with persistence, preparation, and the courage to demand respect. At the end of the day, ageism in healthcare comes down to one false belief: that growing older automatically means growing weaker, more fragile, and less deserving of full treatment. The truth is far different. Aging may change the body, but it doesn't erase your right to live fully, to fight illness aggressively, or to demand answers. It doesn't diminish your humanity, your dignity, or your worth. So the next time you walk into a doctor's office, carry this knowledge with you. Remember that being told, "It's just age," isn't the end of the conversation. It's the beginning of a deeper one. Don't settle for fewer tests or half-hearted treatments. Don't let assumptions define your care. Because ageism may be common, but it doesn't have to be your story. And once you push past those invisible barriers, you'll discover something powerful. Your age isn't a limitation, it's proof of your resilience. And that resilience deserves the best care medicine can offer, at any age. When you think about what makes a good doctor's appointment, most people imagine time. Time to sit down, explain what's been happening, ask questions, and really feel heard. But in today's healthcare system, time is the one thing in shortest supply. Across the United States, the average appointment lasts just 7 to 10 minutes. That's not a typo. 7 to 10 minutes. By the time you've hung up your coat, answered a few basic questions, and described your symptoms, the visit is practically over. For younger patients with simple issues, maybe that's enough. But for seniors, whose health is often more complex, those precious minutes can mean the difference between catching something early and missing it until it's too late. Picture this: you're 80 years old and managing 3 different conditions. Maybe high blood pressure, arthritis, and diabetes. Each one requires its own medications, its own monitoring, and each comes with side effects that can overlap. You walk into a doctor's office with a new complaint, something subtle like dizziness or unusual fatigue. In a rushed 7-minute visit, the doctor barely scratches the surface. They ask a couple of questions, glance at your chart, maybe run a quick blood pressure check, and then send you on your way with advice to rest more or drink extra water. On the surface, it seems harmless. But what if that dizziness isn't dehydration? What if it's an early sign of a heart rhythm problem? What if that fatigue is being caused by slow internal bleeding? Without time to dig deeper, a dangerous condition gets brushed aside as something minor. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. That's the danger of time limits. They don't just feel frustrating. EY can literally cost months or years of quality life. Seniors often have what doctors call non-specific symptoms. Unlike younger people, who may have clear-cut issues, older adults can show vague warning signs that only make sense when carefully pieced together. Fatigue, weight loss, mild confusion, trouble sleeping. These are all things that can be shrugged off as part of aging. But sometimes they're the early whispers of something serious. And those whispers require listening, patience, and time. Let me share a story that illustrates this vividly. Frank was a 79-year-old retired mechanic from Michigan. He had always been tough, the kind of man who rarely complained about aches or pains. But over a period of weeks, he started feeling unusually tired. His wife noticed he was napping more, losing interest in projects he normally enjoyed. When he finally went to the doctor, he was given a 10-minute appointment. The doctor checked his blood pressure, asked a few quick questions, and concluded it was probably just part of aging. "You're almost 80, he said kindly. "Slowing down is normal." Frank went home, reassured but still uneasy. Months later, he collapsed in his garage. Tests revealed advanced leukemia, something that could have been detected far earlier with proper blood work. His wife never forgot that rushed visit. She often wondered if just 15 extra minutes might have changed the outcome. Frank's story isn't unusual. In fact, studies show that seniors are among the most at-risk groups for missed or delayed diagnoses, precisely because their health issues don't fit neatly into quick conversations. Unlike younger patients who might come in with one concern, seniors often have multiple overlapping problems. Blood pressure medicine can cause dizziness, but so can dehydration, heart problems, or neurological changes. Sorting through those possibilities requires time to ask follow-up questions, time to review medication lists carefully, time to consider the whole person instead of just one symptom. Without that, doctors end up making quick judgments, and seniors end up carrying the consequences. Another problem with short appointments is communication. Seniors often need more explanation, not less, when it comes to treatment plans or medication instructions. But when a doctor is pressed for time, explanations get rushed, and misunderstandings happen. Maybe you leave the office unclear about how to take a new medication, or you forget which symptoms mean you should call for help. In some cases, those misunderstandings can be dangerous. A missed instruction about insulin, a forgotten warning about blood thinner interactions, a vague follow-up plan, all can lead to emergencies that could have been avoided if only there had been a few more minutes of clear communication. The irony is that saving time in the short run often costs the system more in the long run. A rushed visit that misses a diagnosis can lead to hospital stays, expensive treatments, and years of lost independence. For example, a senior who comes in with subtle signs of pneumonia might be sent home with advice to rest. Without a chest X-ray or careful questioning, the infection worsens, and within days, they're admitted to the hospital with severe respiratory distress. What could have been treated with antibiotics and rest now requires ICU care, weeks of recovery, and thousands of dollars in costs. All because the original appointment didn't allow time to dig deeper. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever left a doctor's office feeling like you didn't get to say everything you needed? Maybe you wrote down questions ahead of time, but only managed to ask one or two before the visit ended. Or maybe you felt the doctor's body language, glancing at the clock, typing into the computer, standing near the door, signaling it was time to wrap up. That sense of being rushed is more than unpleasant. It can leave you wondering whether your concerns were taken seriously, whether you're getting the care you deserve. Now compare that to the rare appointment where a doctor actually sits down, makes eye contact, and listens without rushing. In those moments, you feel respected. You feel like a partner in your own health. And often, that extra time leads to discoveries. A detail you mention casually, a symptom, a change in habit, a new medication, sparks the doctor's curiosity, leading to a test or referral that makes all the difference. That's what seniors need more of. But in a system that values quantity over quality, those moments are becoming rarer. It's important to understand that doctors aren't always the villains here. Many are under incredible pressure to see a high number of patients each day. Insurance companies and healthcare systems often demand efficiency, measuring productivity in terms of patients per hour. That pressure trickles down into the exam room, where doctors are forced to choose between thoroughness and speed. Unfortunately, speed usually wins. But knowing that doesn't make it any less dangerous for seniors, who need time the most. Another layer to this issue is that seniors often don't want to be a bother. Many were raised in a culture where you didn't question authority, where you didn't argue with doctors, and where you believed being polite meant not taking up too much time. So when a visit feels rushed, you might hold back your questions, thinking, "I'll just deal with it later." But later can be too late. That polite instinct to not impose actually plays right into the system's flaws, leaving seniors even more vulnerable. Let's talk about the human cost of this dynamic. A 74-year-old woman in Florida once told researchers, I feel like I have to choose which problem to mention, because I know they don't have time for all of them. Imagine that, having to prioritize which symptoms are worth sharing, knowing that something important might be left out. That kind of triage shouldn't fall on the patient. Yet for many seniors, it's the reality of every doctor's visit. There's also the issue of subtle warning signs. Many serious illnesses in older adults don't present with dramatic symptoms. A small loss of appetite could be the first sign of cancer. Mild confusion could be the beginning of a stroke. Shortness of breath could be an early heart problem. These clues require careful listening and follow-up questions, the kind that simply don't happen in a 7-minute appointment. Without time, these signs are missed, and opportunities for early treatment slip away. Now, imagine what healthcare could look like if seniors had the time they truly needed. Appointments long enough to cover all concerns, to ask questions, and to clarify instructions. Doctors who could step back and look at the whole picture instead of rushing through checklists. That's not a fantasy. It's how medicine used to be in many places, and it's still possible when patients demand it. Because the truth is, you have the right to more than 7 minutes. You have the right to thorough, respectful care that matches the complexity of your life and health. So what can you do? One powerful strategy is preparation. Walk into the appointment with a written list of your top concerns. Prioritize them so that if time runs short, the most important issues get addressed first. Bring a notebook to jot down instructions, and don't be afraid to say, "I have a few more questions I need answered." If the doctor seems rushed, politely but firmly insist that you need clarity before leaving. Remember, your health is worth those extra minutes. Another step is scheduling longer visits when possible. Many clinics allow patients to request extended appointments, especially for seniors with multiple conditions. Ask the scheduler directly, "Can I have a longer slot? I have several issues to cover." It may not always work, but when it does, it can change the entire tone of the visit. Most importantly, remind yourself that you are not a bother. You've earned the right to thorough care. Your questions matter. Your concerns matter. Your life is every bit as valuable at 80 as it was at 30. And if that means asking for more time, so be it. Doctors may be busy, but they are there to serve patients, not the other way around. Time limits in healthcare are a systemic issue, but they hit seniors hardest. They turn doctors' visits into rushed exchanges, they silence important symptoms, and they increase the risk of missed diagnoses. But by recognizing the problem, preparing carefully, and speaking up, seniors can push back against the clock. Because your health can't be rushed. And your life deserves more than 7 minutes. One of the hardest parts about growing older isn't the gray hair, the wrinkles, or even the health challenges. It's the feeling of being invisible. That feeling can show up in all kinds of places. In stores where clerks rush past you, at family gatherings where younger voices drown yours out, or on television, where hardly anyone your age is represented. But perhaps the most painful place to feel invisible is in the doctor's office, when your health, your safety, and sometimes your very life depend on being seen and heard. Communication gaps in healthcare are more than a simple annoyance. For seniors, they can be dangerous. Many older adults have walked into appointments only to realize the doctor is speaking not to them, but to their caregiver, son, or daughter, even when the senior is sitting right there, perfectly capable of answering questions. Other times, doctors skim through explanations, using quick medical jargon, assuming the patient won't understand. The result is the same. You leave the office confused, diminished, and unsure about what just happened. That's not just insulting, it's risky. Let's take a closer look at why these gaps exist. Doctors often underestimate seniors' ability to process information. They assume that older patients won't remember details, won't grasp complicated concepts, or won't want to hear about technical matters. Instead of speaking directly and clearly, they simplify by skipping important details or handing over vague instructions. Ironically, this attempt to make things easier often makes them harder. Without full explanations, seniors may misunderstand how to take medication, what side effects to watch for, or when to follow up. That's how preventable mistakes happen. Imagine being prescribed a new heart medication. The doctor says quickly, "Take this once a day, and let me know if you have problems." But what counts as a problem? Dizziness? A racing heartbeat? Swelling in your ankles? Without clear communication, you might ignore early warning signs that the drug isn't working, or worse, that it's harming you. A simple 5-minute conversation could have clarified everything, but because of assumptions, you walk away vulnerable. There's another form of communication gap that's more subtle but equally harmful: when doctors direct their attention to someone else in the room. Maybe you bring your daughter to help take notes, or a neighbor drives you to the appointment. Instead of addressing you directly, the doctor turns to them. How long has she been experiencing this? What symptoms have you noticed? Suddenly, you're a spectator in your own healthcare. Even if it's unintentional, that shift sends a powerful message. You're no longer the main voice in decisions about your body. For many seniors, that's deeply disempowering. Consider the story of Margaret, an 81-year-old widow from Pennsylvania. She was sharp, articulate, and fully capable of handling her affairs. One afternoon, she went to her cardiologist with her son, simply because he had offered to drive. As soon as the doctor entered the room, his questions went to the son. How has she been feeling? Did she mention any chest pain? Margaret interrupted, saying, I can answer those questions myself. But the doctor continued glancing at her son for confirmation. Margaret left the office furious, not just at the doctor, but at the feeling of being dismissed, as if she were no longer competent. What stung the most was that her concerns about new symptoms weren't fully addressed, because the doctor never truly listened to her. That's how dignity erodes, bit by bit, through small but powerful communication failures. This invisibility isn't always about arrogance. Sometimes it's about efficiency. Doctors think they're saving time by addressing the caregiver, assuming the patient will forget details anyway. But what they don't realize is that communication isn't just about transmitting information, it's about respect. Speaking directly to the patient, even if a caregiver is present, acknowledges their humanity. It says, your voice matters. You are still the center of this story. And for seniors who already feel society edging them out, that respect is priceless. Then there's the issue of medical jargon. Even younger adults often leave appointments confused, overwhelmed by words like hypertension, neuropathy, or congestive heart failure. For seniors, especially those juggling multiple conditions and medications, jargon creates walls instead of bridges. When a doctor says, we'll monitor your creatinine levels to assess renal function, most people nod politely without truly understanding. But imagine if instead the doctor said, we're going to check how well your kidneys are working, because some medicines can put extra stress on them. That simple translation can be the difference between clarity and confusion. Confusion in healthcare isn't harmless. It's costly. Seniors who don't fully understand instructions are far more likely to make medication errors, miss follow-up appointments, or fail to recognize dangerous symptoms. According to research, nearly half of hospital readmissions for older adults are linked to poor communication during or after medical visits. That's not about failing bodies. That's about failed conversations. And those failures are preventable. Let's revisit the everyday reality of seniors managing multiple prescriptions. You might be told to take one with meals, another twice daily, and a third at bedtime. Without written clarification or without the chance to ask follow-up questions, it's easy to mix things up. Maybe you forget whether to take something before or after eating. Maybe you misunderstand the spacing between doses. In some cases, the consequences can be life-threatening, all because no one slowed down to explain clearly. It's not just about medicine, either. Communication gaps also affect how seniors understand diagnoses. Being told, your scan showed some changes consistent with early dementia, without a clear explanation of what that means, leaves patients and families in fear and uncertainty. How early? What kind of changes? What comes next? Without details, the words hang in the air like a sentence rather than a conversation. Seniors deserve more than vague pronouncements. They deserve clarity, compassion, and guidance. But here's the hopeful part. These gaps don't have to be permanent. Seniors can take steps to bridge them. One strategy is to insist, politely but firmly, that doctors speak directly to you. If they turn to your caregiver, redirect the conversation by answering yourself. If they gloss over details, ask, can you explain that in simpler terms? Or, what exactly does that mean for me? Doctors are human, and sometimes they fall into habits without realizing it. By asserting your voice, you remind them to see you, not just your chart or your companion. Another strategy is preparation. Bring a notebook, and don't be shy about writing down what you hear. If something doesn't make sense, say, "Could you repeat that in plain language?" Some seniors feel embarrassed asking, worried they'll sound uneducated. But let's be clear, medicine is its own language. Even highly educated people outside the medical field struggle with it. Asking for clarity isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It can also help to repeat instructions back to the doctor. So, just to be sure, I should take this pill once in the morning with food, and call if I feel dizzy or short of breath, correct? This not only shows you're engaged, but it also gives the doctor a chance to confirm or correct misunderstandings on the spot. That simple step can prevent dangerous mistakes later. Let me share another story, this time about Joe, a 76-year-old from Texas. Joe was prescribed a new medication for his blood pressure. The doctor explained quickly, then rushed off to the next patient. Joe thought he was supposed to take 2 pills every day, when in fact he was supposed to take 1. Within a week, his blood pressure dropped dangerously low, and he ended up in the emergency room. When his daughter reviewed the discharge papers, she discovered the instructions had been clear in the chart, but never fully explained to Joe himself. That mistake cost him a week in the hospital. The lesson: even small communication gaps can have life-altering consequences. What's even more damaging is the emotional toll. When doctors don't communicate clearly, seniors can feel infantilized, as though they're being treated like children. That erodes confidence and discourages engagement. Some seniors stop asking questions altogether, convinced it's not worth the effort. But disengagement is dangerous. A silent patient is a vulnerable patient. Healthcare works best when patients and doctors are partners. And partnership requires conversation, not one-way lectures. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. It's also worth noting that communication isn't just about words, it's about body language. A doctor who faces the computer screen instead of the patient, who never makes eye contact, who stands by the door with one hand on the handle, that body language communicates volumes. It says, "I'm too busy for you." Seniors, more than anyone, pick up on these cues. Feeling rushed, unimportant, or invisible can discourage people from raising the very concerns that need attention. Now imagine the opposite. A doctor sits down, looks you in the eye, and says, "Tell me in your own words what's been going on." They listen without interrupting. They explain in plain English. They check to make sure you understand. In that moment, you feel respected, empowered, and safe. And often, the quality of care improves dramatically because both sides are fully engaged. That's the model seniors deserve. The challenge is that this ideal isn't always what happens in real life. But by recognizing the problem and speaking up, seniors can push for better communication. Remember, your health depends not just on what treatments you receive, but on how well you understand them. Clarity saves lives. Respect preserves dignity. And being seen and heard is not a luxury, it's a right. So the next time you're at the doctor, don't accept invisibility. Don't walk out with unanswered questions. Don't let jargon or rushed explanations leave you confused. Speak up. Insist on being included. Because communication gaps may be common, but they don't have to define your care. You are not invisible. Your life, your choices, and your voice matter, perhaps now more than ever. And when you demand to be heard, you transform not only your own care, but the culture of healthcare for every senior who comes after you. When you reach a certain age, people sometimes assume you've lost your voice, or at least that it doesn't carry the same weight it once did. But in the doctor's office, your voice is the most powerful tool you have. It can cut through assumptions, stop rushed decisions, and reshape the way care is delivered. Seniors often hesitate to speak up, thinking they're being polite or respectful, but the truth is this: if you don't advocate for yourself, no one else can do it fully. Your body, your symptoms, your experience, those belong to you, and you have the right to be heard. Advocating for yourself in healthcare doesn't mean being difficult, argumentative, or combative. It means showing up as an equal partner, not a passive bystander. It means remembering that while doctors may have medical degrees, you are the world's foremost expert on your own body. You live in it every single day. You know what feels different, what has changed, and what seems off. That knowledge is valuable. But it only helps if you speak it clearly and confidently in the exam room. Let's imagine two very different scenarios. In the first, a 75-year-old man named Charles goes to his appointment. He has a list of concerns: trouble sleeping, occasional chest tightness, and dizziness when he stands up quickly. But when the doctor enters the room, Charles decides not to mention everything. He worries about taking up too much time, so he only mentions the sleep problem. The doctor prescribes a mild sleeping pill, and the appointment ends in less than 10 minutes. Charles leaves feeling half-satisfied, but deep down, he knows he didn't share the full picture. Weeks later, the chest tightness worsens, and he finds himself in the emergency room with a heart attack. Looking back, he wonders what might have happened if he'd said everything on his mind. Now consider a different patient, Linda, age 80. She walks into her appointment with a notebook. On the first page is a list of her top 3 concerns, written clearly. 1. Shortness of breath during daily walks. 2. Occasional confusion in the evenings. 3. Questions about new medication side effects. When the doctor arrives, Linda calmly says, "Doctor, I wrote these down because I want to make sure we cover them today." That one simple act changes the tone of the visit. The doctor realizes Linda is serious, prepared, and expects to be treated as a partner. They go through each item one by one. Tests are ordered for her breathing, a cognitive screening is recommended, and adjustments are made to her medication. Linda leaves not just with answers, but with confidence that she was heard. That's the difference self-advocacy makes. It begins with preparation. Before every appointment, sit down and write out your concerns. Don't trust yourself to remember everything in the moment. Doctor visits can be overwhelming, and nerves sometimes cause details to slip your mind. Write down your symptoms, when they occur, how long they last, and what seems to make them better or worse. If you've noticed changes in appetite, energy, or mood, include those, too. Specifics matter. Saying, "I feel tired," is vague. Saying, "I get tired after walking 1 block, when I used to manage 3 without trouble," is powerful. The more precise you are, the harder it is for your concerns to be brushed aside. Bring that notebook into the room. Don't be shy about using it. Jot down what the doctor says in your own words, not just medical terms. If they use language you don't understand, stop them. Say, "Could you explain that in plain English?" That isn't rude. It's smart. Your health decisions should never rest on half-understood explanations. Imagine if a contractor explained the wiring in your house with technical jargon, and you nodded along without grasping it. You'd never feel safe flipping the switch. Your body deserves the same clarity, if not more. Advocacy also means refusing to leave until you understand the plan. Too often, seniors walk out of offices unclear about what exactly is wrong, what treatment is recommended, and what the next steps are. That uncertainty is not acceptable. Before you leave, you should be able to answer 3 basic questions. What is my diagnosis, or what are we ruling out? What is the treatment or test plan, and why? What signs or symptoms mean I should seek immediate help? If you can't answer those questions confidently, the visit isn't over. Some seniors worry that this makes them seem pushy. But here's the truth. Good doctors respect engaged patients. In fact, most prefer it. It makes their job easier when you come prepared, ask questions, and take notes. It shows you're committed to your health. And if a doctor ever makes you feel guilty for wanting clarity, that's a red flag. A relationship built on rushing, dismissal, or intimidation isn't a partnership. It's a power imbalance. And you deserve better. One of the biggest barriers to self-advocacy is the belief that doctors know best and shouldn't be questioned. But medicine is not an exact science. 2 doctors can look at the same symptoms and recommend 2 different approaches. That's why second opinions exist. Advocating for yourself means remembering that you have choices. You can ask, "What are the alternatives?" Or, "What would happen if we tried a different route?" You can, and should, ask what the risks and benefits are of each option. Doctors don't live in your body. They don't carry your daily pain, your side effects, your limitations. You do. That makes your perspective essential in every decision. Let me tell you about Stanley, age 77. He had been experiencing dizziness for months. His doctor chalked it up to getting older. But Stanley, after reading about self-advocacy, decided to push harder. At his next appointment, he brought a detailed log of every dizzy spell, when it happened, how long it lasted, and what he was doing at the time. He asked directly, "What tests can we do to find out why this is happening?" Faced with the evidence and persistence, the doctor ordered blood work and discovered severe anemia caused by internal bleeding. Early treatment saved Stanley's life. His persistence wasn't rude, it was necessary. Advocacy also means using your resources wisely. Pharmacists, nurses, and even reception staff can play crucial roles. Pharmacists in particular often know more about drug interactions than busy doctors. Don't hesitate to ask them questions about new prescriptions. Nurses can explain instructions in simpler terms or help clarify follow-up steps. The healthcare system is a team effort, and you are the captain of that team. Another key part of self-advocacy is bringing support when needed. 2 sets of ears are better than 1. If you're worried about forgetting details, bring a trusted friend or family member. But here's the important part: make sure the doctor still speaks directly to you. You can say, "This is my daughter, she's here to take notes, but I want to answer the questions myself." That sets the tone immediately. It keeps you in control while still using your support system effectively. Technology can help, too. Many seniors now use patient portals to review test results, message doctors, and keep track of medications. Don't ignore these tools. They're designed to give you more control. If something on a test result doesn't make sense, send a message asking for clarification. If you notice a pattern in your lab results, bring it up. Engaged patients often catch things earlier than overworked providers. Self-advocacy also extends to insurance and coverage. Too many seniors accept denials or restrictions without question. But you have the right to appeal, to ask why something isn't covered, and to request a review. Insurance companies don't get the final say in your care. You do, in partnership with your doctor. Knowing your rights and pushing back when needed is part of protecting your health. Of course, advocating for yourself isn't always easy. It can feel intimidating to question a professional. It can feel exhausting when you're already dealing with health challenges. But remember this: silence carries its own risks. Not asking questions can lead to missed diagnoses, dangerous medication errors, and unnecessary suffering. Speaking up might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it can save your life. The good news is that self-advocacy is a skill that improves with practice. The first time you insist on an explanation, your voice may shake. The second time, you'll feel steadier. By the third or fourth time, it becomes second nature. And with every step, you reclaim a little more control, a little more confidence, and a little more dignity. Most importantly, remember that advocating for yourself isn't selfish. It doesn't waste time. It doesn't inconvenience anyone. It ensures that you get the care you deserve. And when seniors speak up, it doesn't just help them, it improves the system for everyone. Doctors become more aware, caregivers become more informed, and the culture of healthcare shifts toward respect. So the next time you walk into a clinic, don't shrink into the chair. Sit tall. Open your notebook. State your concerns clearly. Ask your questions, and don't leave until you understand the answers. You are not a burden. You are not an afterthought. You are a partner in your own care. And when you advocate for yourself, you send a powerful message to your doctor, to your family, and to yourself that your life, your health, and your voice matter just as much today as they ever did. There comes a moment in almost every senior's healthcare journey when you walk out of the doctor's office with a nagging feeling in your gut. Maybe it's the way the appointment was rushed. Maybe it's how your concerns seemed brushed aside with a smile and a, "That's normal at your age." Or maybe it's the fact that you left with more questions than answers. That sinking feeling, that sense of being unheard or dismissed, is not just frustrating. It can be dangerous. And it's exactly why learning to speak up and, when necessary, seek a second opinion is one of the most powerful survival skills you can develop in today's healthcare system. For generations, many of us were taught to respect authority, never question professionals, and always trust the doctor. Doctors were seen almost as infallible figures in white coats whose words were final. But the truth is, doctors are human. They get tired. They get busy. They overlook things. They sometimes carry biases, conscious or not. And just like any other professional, they can make mistakes. That doesn't make them bad people. It makes them human. What makes the difference in your care is whether you allow those mistakes or assumptions to go unchallenged. Speaking up doesn't mean being rude or confrontational. It means valuing your life enough to demand clarity. If a doctor explains something and you don't understand, say so. "Doctor, I'm not following you. Could you explain that again in plain English?" If they seem rushed and you still have questions, speak up. "I don't feel comfortable leaving until I understand what to do next." If they brush off your concerns, push gently but firmly. "I'm not satisfied with that answer. What else could this be? What tests can rule it out?" These small phrases can shift the power dynamic in the room. Instead of being a passive recipient of care, you become an active partner. Let me share a story that illustrates the power of speaking up. Evelyn, an 84-year-old retired teacher from California, had been experiencing shortness of breath for months. Her doctor repeatedly told her it was just part of aging and suggested she take it easy. But Evelyn knew something was wrong. One day, during an appointment, she interrupted the doctor mid-sentence and said, "I want you to order more tests. I don't feel heard, and I don't believe this is just aging." Reluctantly, the doctor ordered an echocardiogram. The results revealed significant heart valve disease that required surgery. Without that surgery, Evelyn's health would have continued to decline rapidly. By speaking up, by refusing to accept dismissal, she quite literally saved her own life. Not every story has such dramatic stakes, but the principle remains. When you speak up, you create space for deeper investigation. You prevent important details from being overlooked. You protect yourself against assumptions. And perhaps most importantly, you remind your doctor that you are not just a number on a chart. You are a human being with a voice that matters. Sometimes, though, speaking up isn't enough. Sometimes you need to take the next step, seeking a second opinion. Too many seniors view second opinions as disrespectful or unnecessary, as if consulting another doctor is a betrayal of the first one. Nothing could be further from the truth. Second opinions are not insults, they are safeguards. No one questions a homeowner for getting 2 quotes on a roof repair. No one criticizes a family for seeking multiple estimates before buying a car. Your health, which is infinitely more valuable, deserves at least the same level of care. Think of second opinions as part of good self-advocacy, not as disloyalty. A confident, competent doctor will welcome the idea. They'll want you to feel assured, informed, and comfortable with your decisions. If a doctor becomes defensive or offended at the suggestion of a second opinion, that itself is a red flag. A professional who truly values your health will support your right to gather more information. Consider the case of Harold, a 76-year-old Vietnam veteran. He had been told by his primary care doctor that his persistent back pain was due to arthritis and nothing more. But Harold wasn't convinced. He had a gut feeling that something deeper was wrong. He sought a second opinion from a different clinic. That doctor ordered scans that revealed spinal cancer. Because it was caught early, Harold was able to receive treatment and maintain his mobility. Without that second opinion, he would have lost the ability to walk within months. For Harold, the choice to seek another perspective gave him years of life and independence. Another example is Grace, a 79-year-old grandmother in Illinois. She was told by her first doctor that she was too old for knee replacement surgery and should just rely on painkillers. Grace wasn't satisfied with that answer. She consulted an orthopedic surgeon who specialized in seniors and discovered she was indeed a candidate for the procedure. The surgery was successful, and within months she was back to gardening and playing with her grandchildren. Grace later said, "That second opinion gave me my life back." Stories like these highlight an important truth. Second opinions can change the entire trajectory of care. They can confirm a diagnosis, offer alternative treatments, or catch errors that might have gone unnoticed. Sometimes they even provide peace of mind by validating the original plan, giving you confidence to move forward. Either way, you win. Of course, seeking a second opinion requires courage. It means overcoming that old voice in your head that says, "Don't question the doctor." It means being willing to invest the time and effort to gather your records, schedule another appointment, and explain your symptoms again. But what is that small effort compared to the potential reward of better care, better outcomes, and a longer, healthier life? There's also a practical side to second opinions. Before you pursue one, make sure you gather all your relevant information. Test results, medication lists, previous diagnoses, and treatment notes. Having a complete picture helps the second doctor make a fair assessment. You can request copies of your records from your current provider. This is your legal right. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for asking. Those records belong to you, not the clinic. It's also wise to prepare specific questions for the second opinion visit. Ask, do you agree with the original diagnosis? Are there other conditions this could be? What alternative treatments exist? What are the risks and benefits of each option? The goal isn't to collect endless opinions, it's to gain clarity. When multiple doctors confirm the same path, you can move forward with confidence. When they disagree, you gain the insight needed to make informed choices. Some seniors worry that their insurance won't cover a second opinion. In reality, many plans encourage it, especially for major procedures or life-changing diagnoses. Even Medicare covers second opinions for certain conditions. Don't let financial fears stop you from asking. Often, the long-term cost of a missed diagnosis or unnecessary treatment is far greater than the price of an additional visit. Now, let's address the emotional side of speaking up and seeking second opinions. For many seniors, it feels uncomfortable, even impolite. But think about it this way. If your grandchild were being dismissed by a teacher, would you encourage them to stay quiet? Of course not. You'd remind them to stand tall, speak up, and demand fairness. Why should you treat your own health with any less urgency? Silence doesn't serve you. Speaking up does. The act of asserting yourself also sends a message beyond the exam room. It challenges the culture of ageism that often pervades healthcare. Every time a senior insists on being heard, every time someone demands a second opinion, it chips away at the stereotype that older adults are passive, fragile, or incapable of making decisions. It reshapes the narrative of aging, one voice at a time. And let's be clear, speaking up isn't just about major diagnoses like cancer or heart disease. It's about everyday concerns, too. If a medication makes you feel worse, say so. If you don't understand why a test is being ordered, ask. If your symptoms are dismissed, push back. Sometimes the difference between suffering in silence and finding relief is simply a matter of raising your voice. There's a phrase worth remembering, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. In healthcare, that's often true. Patients who advocate, who ask questions, and who demand clarity usually receive better attention. Not because doctors care less about quiet patients, but because the system is busy, overloaded, and prone to shortcuts. Speaking up ensures you're not lost in the shuffle. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but the more you practice, the stronger you'll become. Start small. Ask for clarification when instructions are unclear. Next time, ask for alternatives when a treatment is suggested. And when the stakes are high, be ready to say, "I'd like a second opinion." Each step builds confidence, and confidence builds power. So the next time you walk out of an appointment feeling uneasy, listen to that feeling. Don't ignore it. If your concerns were dismissed, if you still feel confused, if something just doesn't sit right, go back, ask again, or see another doctor. You are not being difficult. You are protecting your life. And your life is worth every ounce of effort it takes. Remember this. No one cares more about your health than you do. Doctors may be busy, family members may be supportive, but ultimately, you are the one living in your body every day. You have the most at stake, and you have the most to gain by speaking up. So don't be silent. Don't settle for half answers. Don't stop at the first opinion if it doesn't feel right. Speak up, seek clarity, and never be afraid to get a second perspective. Because when it comes to your health, your voice isn't just important, it's essential. There are many tools doctors use to care for patients. Stethoscopes, blood tests, scans, X-rays, medications, and surgeries. These are the instruments of modern medicine, the things that diagnose disease and treat illness. But as powerful as these tools are, they are not the strongest ones in the room. The most important medical tool you carry isn't in your doctor's pocket or written on a prescription pad. It's your voice. Your voice is what makes the difference between being overlooked and being seen, between confusion and clarity, between getting dismissed and getting the care you truly need. No matter how advanced medical technology becomes, no machine can replace the power of a patient who speaks up clearly, firmly, and persistently. For seniors, especially, this truth is vital. Too often, the voices of older adults are softened by politeness, worn down by fatigue, or drowned out by a system that moves too quickly. But the seniors who thrive in today's healthcare system are the ones who use their voice boldly. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Think about what happens when you stay silent. You notice a new symptom, maybe shortness of breath, sudden fatigue, or memory lapses, but you downplay it, telling yourself it's just part of aging. At your appointment, you decide not to mention it because the doctor seems busy. Weeks later, the symptom worsens, and what could have been a small, treatable issue has now grown into something serious. Silence gives illness space to grow. Silence turns uncertainty into danger. Now imagine the opposite. You notice something unusual and bring it up immediately, even if it feels minor. You say, "Doctor, I want you to know this has been happening, and I don't think it's normal for me." That single statement opens the door to tests, discussions, and solutions that may prevent disaster. The difference isn't technology or luck. The difference is your voice. There's a story of a man named Leonard, age 81, from North Carolina. Leonard began feeling unusually tired in the afternoons, needing naps when he'd never been a napper before. At his checkup, his doctor asked the usual quick questions, but Leonard almost didn't mention the fatigue. "I figured, I'm 81. Maybe that's just how it is," he later said. But something in him refused to stay quiet. He spoke up, "No, this feels different. I've never had to sleep like this before." His doctor listened, ordered tests, and discovered early-stage heart failure. Because Leonard used his voice, the condition was caught in time, and with treatment, he continued living independently. He later told his grandchildren, "My voice saved my life." It's easy to underestimate the power of words, especially when you've spent a lifetime being taught not to complain, not to question, not to cause trouble. Many seniors carry that old habit into the exam room, sitting politely while their concerns go unspoken. But medicine isn't like standing in line at the post office or waiting at the bank. This is your health, your future, your dignity. Using your voice isn't causing trouble, it's taking responsibility. Your voice also shapes how doctors see you. Imagine a busy physician who sees dozens of patients every day. It's easy for them to fall into routines, to assume that every senior fits the same pattern of aches, pains, slowing down. But when you use your voice, when you come prepared with questions, when you press for clarity, when you insist on being part of decisions, you break through that routine. You remind the doctor that you are not just another chart. You are an individual, engaged, alert, and determined to live fully. That changes the way they interact with you. It shifts the dynamic from passive care to active partnership. Using your voice also guards against one of the biggest risks in senior healthcare: misunderstandings. Studies show that nearly half of older patients leave the doctor's office unsure about what they were told. They forget instructions, misunderstand medication directions, or misinterpret the seriousness of their condition. These misunderstandings lead to medication errors, mistreatments, and preventable hospitalizations. But when you speak up, by repeating back instructions, asking for written notes, or saying, "I don't understand," you close those gaps. You turn confusion into clarity. Let's look at another real-life example. Mary, a 77-year-old grandmother from Kansas, was prescribed a new blood thinner after a minor stroke. The doctor gave her instructions quickly, then rushed off to the next patient. Mary could have nodded politely and left, but instead she said, "I want to make sure I understand this. What time should I take this pill each day? Should I take it with food? And what symptoms mean I should call you right away?" That moment of speaking up turned a rushed encounter into a clear plan. Later, when Mary experienced unusual bruising, She recognized it as a red flag and called her doctor immediately. Her dosage was adjusted, and she avoided a dangerous bleed. Again, it wasn't technology that saved her. It was her voice. Of course, finding your voice isn't always easy. Some seniors feel intimidated by medical settings, overwhelmed by jargon, or afraid of being labeled difficult. But the truth is, the system rewards those who speak up. Doctors are more likely to take time with patients who ask questions. Nurses are more likely to slow down for those who request clarification. The squeaky wheel does get the grease. And in healthcare, that grease can mean better outcomes, safer treatments, and more years of independence. If you struggle to use your voice in the moment, preparation helps. Write down your questions ahead of time. Practice saying them out loud. If you worry you'll be interrupted, start the visit by saying, "Doctor, I brought a list, and I want to make sure we cover these points before I leave." If you don't understand something, rehearse phrases like, "Can you explain that again?" Or, "What does that mean for me?" The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Over time, speaking up becomes less of a chore and more of a habit. Another way to strengthen your voice is to bring someone with you. A trusted friend, spouse, or family member can act as backup, asking questions or reminding you to cover everything on your list. But remember, even if someone else is in the room, make sure the doctor addresses you directly. This is your body, your health, your life. Others can support, but your voice must lead. It's also important to remember that your voice has power beyond the exam room. When seniors share stories with each other, about being dismissed, about pushing back, about demanding second opinions, they inspire others to do the same. Every time you speak up, you not only protect yourself, but you also encourage others to reclaim their voices, too. Together, seniors can shift the culture of healthcare from one that silences older adults to one that listens, respects, and responds. Doctors may have their stethoscopes and blood tests, but you have something even stronger: the lived experience of decades. You know your body. You know your patterns. You know when something is wrong. And you have the words to communicate that, if you choose to use them. Think of your voice as both shield and sword. It shields you from dismissal, protecting you against assumptions and rushed visits. It cuts through jargon and complexity, bringing clarity and confidence. It commands respect, reminding everyone in the room that your age doesn't diminish your value. Your voice, steady and firm, can turn even the busiest doctor's attention toward you. There's a powerful moment in every senior's life when they realize, "I am not invisible. I will not be silenced. My voice matters." That realization is liberating. It transforms fear into confidence, passivity into partnership. And once you taste that power, you'll never give it up again. So the next time you step into a doctor's office, remember this. The strongest medical tool you carry isn't in your bag, isn't on your chart, isn't in the doctor's hands. It's in your own mouth. It's the questions you ask, the clarity you demand, the insistence that your concerns are valid. Speak with courage. Speak with persistence. Speak with the dignity you've earned through a lifetime of experience. Because in the end, your voice is not just a tool, it is your lifeline. And when you use it boldly, you give yourself the best chance at not only surviving, but thriving at every age. Growing older is not a reason for less care. It should be the very reason for better care. Each wrinkle, each story, and each lesson you've carried through decades is proof of strength, not a sign to be overlooked. Too often, the system tries to simplify your needs, rush your appointments, or assume your voice has grown softer with age. But the truth is that your health, your dignity, and your future deserve the same attention and respect now as they ever did. When you walk into a doctor's office, remember that you bring with you a lifetime of experience and resilience. You are not a passive patient waiting quietly in a chair. You are a partner, an advocate, and a person who deserves answers, clarity, and thoughtful care. Use your voice with courage. Ask the questions. Demand explanations you understand. Refuse to leave with uncertainty. Your persistence, your preparation, and your determination are the strongest tools you have. Even the busiest doctor must pause and listen when they see a patient who is confident, engaged, and unwilling to be dismissed. Let this be the reminder. You are never a burden, never just old, and never invisible. Your life at 70, 80, or 90 is just as valuable as it was at 30. And when you claim your place as an equal partner in your care, you don't just protect your health. You inspire every senior who comes after you. If this message speaks to you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt dismissed by a doctor, and how did you handle it? Your story might give someone else the courage to speak up. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends or family who need this encouragement. Together, we can make sure every senior's voice is heard.